since you're on there. Catherine.
Yep. But, oh, other Catherine?
It could be you, that's fine. Recollections of your voice. I said Catherine just in general, in randomness, so, you know.
Did you want this Catherine?
No,
Go for it.
you're good, you're good. So, recollections of your voice over your lifespan.
I sang a little bit, like when I was a kid, and then our gifted and talented coordinator told us that we should all do orchestra or band so we could learn how to read music.
Mm-hmm.
So I did orchestra for a little while.
What'd you play?
Violin for 3 years. And then in 7th grade, we were doing Annie. So I auditioned for the part of Annie. And I got a one-line speaking part. And then they told me I should work on my voice, and so I joined choir. And I was like the kid who always got pulled out of choir because I didn't sound good in the group. So he would like pull me in front of the mirror and have me do all these exercises in front of the whole class.
Oh, good.
And then it was pretty traumatic. And then I asked him if he would teach me privately, and he said he only taught men. So then I worked with this woman in town.
At least
This
he
seems
was wise
honest.
enough to say, I don't feel comfortable teaching
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And he has great male students.
Yeah.
So then I worked with this woman in town. She kind of got me into more operatic sound. Then went to high school, and I kept working with her through 9th grade, and I locked in, and that's kind of where I decided I wanted to be a music major. Then I decided that the things I was learning from her weren't so great, so I switched teachers, and then did the
Yeah, you and I
all-state
have talked about
process.
her and stuff.
Yeah.
How old were you when you decided to major?
Probably like 13, 14.
Wow.
I was pretty young.
Wow, that's cool.
Did the all-state process, did state in junior year, and then did from the top my senior year.
Yeah.
And then I was in med civil my first semester, or first year of college, and then
There
switched
you
to soprano after
Ta-da!
written in, right?
Okay, let's get a male perspective. Austin.
Same question.
Yeah.
Okay. I joined children's choir when I was about 7 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom encouraged me to do like church solos too. And I was really nervous, but I did it anyway. And then high school, I got into choir. I was first tenor. So then 10th grade baritone, 11th grade, then my voice started to get really big and loud.
Mhm.
And then got to college and just blossomed.
And here you are.
Yeah.
And there it was. Yeah. You know, how many of you guys come from families where other people play musical instruments? Yeah. Okay. So there was a piano or something in the house, or yeah.
I've
Okay.
actually never heard any of my family play, although they did in their past.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, my mom started playing drums when I was young.
Uh-huh. Yeah, my mom played piano and sang in the church choir, and my dad kind of pills at a bunch of different instruments. I mean, he has an accordion, he's got a violin, he's got a banjo, and he took violin lessons as a kid. That was the only thing that he really had lessons on, but he was pretty good with his accordion. So those of you who grew up in families where there wasn't a lot of music making, what was it that drew you to doing music, and how you didn't?
Well, my family really just loves music.
Yeah.
My dad, he's like a heavy metal person.
Cool.
And so.
I played in a rock band.
Yeah, so we would just jam out a lot.
Yeah.
And I've loved music since then, and then it transitioned to just wanting to become a singer.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, Layla, the big long piano. And Freebird and all those. Yeah, I played keyboards in my brother's rock band. So. Yeah. Still have ears left. It's amazing. I can still hear. Believe me. Whoa. Yeah, the band's name was Full Throttle. Yeah. And we definitely played full throttle. Never made any money, But anyway, it was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah. Okay. So structured singing experience. You asked about that.
Oh, me? Oh, I remember I was a soloist in 4th grade for like a little program, and I remember I tried to curtsy, and my teacher jumped down my throat. She was mad because we don't take personal bows.
Oh.
Okay, that's fine. But no, I mean, I remember the most structured was when I was in the Houston Children's Chorus for a couple years, and I really, really wanted to take voice lessons. Cause this one lady had vocalized me up to an F6, and I was like, I'm the best, let's do this. And my mom flat out refused. She said, absolutely not, you are not taking voice lessons with a woman I've never met and don't know the teaching style of. I didn't understand at the time. I was like, I don't understand. She works for the Houston Children's Chorus, she's gotta be legit. And mom was like, you don't know, so absolutely not.
Wow.
You can start taking lessons when you're 14. And
Did your mom sing?
yeah, but my parents met at UNT when they were getting their vocal performance masters.
Oh,
Mhm.
Yeah, so see, you come from a family of singers.
Yeah, my mom did her grad recital when I was like 4.
Yeah,
So it's been there forever, which has been hard. As parents,
yeah,
like my parents liked to be a voice teacher up until then,
yeah,
and critique a lot,
yeah,
and still do.
Well, you know, it's really
It's
interesting
not.
coming from a
I
family
mean,
of singers.
it's nice, but it's not.
If you're a singer and you come from a family of singers, I mean, Placido Domingo's parents were both opera singers, you know, and they toured, you know, doing zarzuela, and you know, that kind of an environment versus at least music's in the household versus people who just love to do it but didn't have a lot of formal training or maybe didn't have a lot of instruments around. So, you know, different environments, they do definitely have an effect upon us. It would be unusual for somebody who, both parents were classical singing trained, that, you know, you went into something else, you know, other kind of singing.
My sister did oboe
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, my son, he has a very nice voice and he's sung in choir, but he plays the piano and he plays the violin. So, because he's very self-conscious about his singing around us. When he's in the bathroom taking a shower, he's singing Hamilton like you wouldn't believe it. But, okay, so role models in your family, you know, my mom sang in church choir, but that was about it. How many of you guys, some of your early experiences were in a church situation, you know, like church youth choir or something like that? For me, my first big solo was singing O Holy Night, you know, which is like singing a freaking Puccini aria at the Christmas pageant. And I was the shepherd who got left behind and didn't go to Bethlehem, and I stayed to watch over the flocks. You know, and the angel gave me this vision, and, you know, I sang on high school, it was like high school senior, I guess. Yeah, I was turned on to classical singing by watching Pavarotti on The Tonight Show one night. And it was like, dang, that's cool. I want to learn how to do that. And I imitated records for about a year and then was like, no, that's not a good idea. So, anyway, all right, so I have a lot of things to give you guys. First off, this is a handout, and send it around this way, that has a lot of just really good, it's like an outline of stuff about the changing voice in both men and women. I hope you guys, I wouldn't expect you to read the 4-part Cooksey thing, because that's a lot. But the Lynn Gackel article, please read that one about the changing female voice.
She's the best in the world.
She is amazing. I mean, she is probably the top authority, certainly in the United States, on the female changing voice. And yeah, she's right up the road at Baylor, and I've gone and watched her work with her. I don't think she directs that group
Who is
anymore.
this?
Lynn
Lily
Gackel.
Roche, did you ever see her do that one?
I've seen her with the big group that's like 75 girls.
She had a small women's choir.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, they would jump off a cliff. If she said, girls, we're going off that cliff, they'd go, yes ma'am, and they would go right with her. And,
That's just what you do. with
well,
people.
she's really dynamic and great ear and a great choral pedagogue. So that's an outline of some things I want to give you guys, and I'll get this one going around the other way, which is some of the big names to know in terms of different theories about how you work with singers as they're going through puberty and so on. And you know, if you're teaching middle school and high school, you're going to have people going through puberty. I remember a guy, here's another one set that is bibliography of other sources, information on children's voices. I had a guy in high school, I remember his voice was still unchanged. Well, gosh, I mean like 11th grade, he was still basically singing kind of soprano-ish. He was, physical stature-wise, he was not very big. You know, had a short neck and small head and stuff. I mean, his voice was just not changed a whole lot, and he, his speaking voice was still high too. And you know, naturally in high school, he got a lot of teasing for that, which is unfortunate. But he had a lovely, lovely voice. I don't know what he's doing. I should try to find him on Facebook or something. So there are a lot of different opinions. Okay, yeah, the piles are coming through. There's a lot of different opinions about how you train people, and that handout that has, you know, Don Collins and John Cooksey and Ginevra Williams and Henry Leck and Ken Phillips. We'll talk through that in just a sec. Let's first look at, and there's one more packet to hand out, sorry. Yep, this is several pages from Ingo Tietze's book about not only childhood and the changes that go on during childhood, but later in life. Because if you work with church groups, you're going to have people from 17 to 75 or 80 in a church choir, you know, and some of the people in their 70s and 80s will still really be singing very well. I mean, Placido Domingo is still singing publicly, you know, as a baritone now at 75. I heard him when he was here in San Antonio last time. He was 71 or something at the time, or 70 or 71, and he's still sang really, really, really well. Did he sound like he did when I heard him in 1984, when he was 43? No. But did he still sound like him, and did he still, you know, able to sing beautifully and artistically and expressively? Of course he could. So it's really important that you guys are at least exposed to some of the information about working with people of all ages. So today, we'll be talking about younger folks, and then on Monday, we'll talk about some of the older ones. So let's look at this one that says voice development issues. I'll wear I have a button about ossification. I'll wear that on next Monday.
What do you think the easiest ages to work with?
Oh gosh. Well, the easiest in terms of probably there's the least issues are people from mid-20s to, you know, mid-50s probably,
Yeah.
because that's kind of our prime physical time. People generally don't have a lot of medical issues yet, and yet their voice is basically mature by 25. So and from that standpoint, but gosh, I mean, I like working with all sorts of people at different places. I've had students in their 80s. I see a gentleman who sang in Vegas and was good friends with Bobby Darin and Frank Sinatra, and you know, performed, knew all those guys, performed in Vegas for years, and he's 84 and he still sings really well. Tony Alderete, he still sings very well. And he's got hundreds of songs, absolutely up in his memory. Yeah, it's amazing. I've taught kids as young as 8. I taught these 2 girls kind of group lesson thing. I tend to prefer, high school and up, simply because, attention span more than anything
Yes.
else. But anyway, so let's talk about some things going on physically. Your laryngeal cartilages are very pliable still as a young person. Your hyoid bone is really gets really hardened, ossified and all. In your mid-20s, your arytenoid cartilages, late 30s. By the time you're in your mid-60s, pretty much all of those cartilages are much more stiff. I mean, they're not completely bone, but they've got a lot of calcium in them, so they're very much stiff, kind of like bone would be. And most of your cartilages throughout your body are that way, except maybe your ears and the end of your nose and stuff. It's beneficial when you're younger because the framework is a little more strong, so in terms of your muscles, your muscles that can move your larynx around, there's something pretty stable there, but then as we get later, there is also some downside of that, especially on the high end. Your thyroid cartilage, there's some movement of your thyroid cartilage that is really possible because your muscles are strong enough to kind of slightly deform the cartilage as they're moving it, but then as your cartilage gets more and more stiff, it's harder for that to happen. It's not as pliable. Also, as people get older, sometimes they will get arthritis in those the cricoarytenoid joints. So your arytenoid cartilages need to be able to pivot and slide and stuff, and that can also, you can actually get arthritis in there, and that it can not move as comfortably. I mean, it's not painful or anything, but it doesn't move as freely as it because of the inflammation. So, during puberty, the angle of the thyroid cartilage in boys gets more and more sharp, and so, Austin, if you can tip your head up, yeah, he's got a very prominent larynx. You can see that little bump right there on him very clearly. Oh, come up. Show off your thyroid cartilage, man. There you go. Yes, that's right. We'll put a big S on it. Yeah. Okay, you see it? Okay. Well, so his thyroid cartilage is much more pointed, and because his vocal folds have lengthened. Okay, while in a female, you may sit. Congratulations. But as a female, your larynx, your thyroid cartilage doesn't grow like that, and of course your vocal folds inside your larynx are not as long. Okay. But during puberty, your larynx will grow more in a vertical dimension than a front to back. Males, it grows in the vertical dimension as well as front to back, so it just generally gets bigger. In the handout from the UTSA book, if you'll look on the back of the first page, there's a graph up here, and it's talking about growth rates of the membranous part, which is the part that's vibrating, of the vocal fold over time. And you can see that there is a little bit faster growth rate on average for the boys. A lot of that happens during puberty, because if you flip to the next page, then you've got a graph there. And so the filled in circles are the girls, and you can see, through age 3, the boys and the girls are pretty similar. And then already by age 10, there's a pretty big disparity in length. And then, around 14, the boys really grows longer. And at the same time, it's plotted the length of the vocal fold against your speaking fundamental frequency, and you can see that, the boys' voices drop precipitously during puberty, and they don't move as far for women. Not only that, not only does your vocal fold as a guy grow longer, but it also bulks up more, so that TA muscle is capable of contacting over a little bit greater surface, okay? Because especially on the underside of your vocal fold, it gets a little more bulky and more square, and so you get more you're still doing this, but you get a little deeper kind of contact, because the muscle is just bigger. So that's another reason why, yes, I know, it's all fun. So, I like doing that. That's one of the reasons why when you hear a guy going through puberty and you start hearing his voice not only deepen, but get richer, that's what's going on. That TA muscle is not only longer, but it's bulkier. Okay. Other things that happen during puberty, well, the epiglottis gets bigger and it's more flat. That lamina propria gets thicker. The vocal ligament right on the edge gets stronger. You'll see people's necks get longer, particularly you'll see that in the guys. It's like you see this guy and then you see him, you see him over the summer, like a cousin or whatever, and then you see him at Christmas, and it looks like everything stayed the same except, whoop, somebody took his head and just went, because his neck is like that much longer all of a sudden, and his body hadn't quite caught up yet. And when you teach guys this age, or like you see middle school boy choirs, or even in high school, and you'll see them singing and their larynx is just like boing, boing, bouncing around, a lot. Well, those muscles, those extrinsic muscles, what are the three that lower your larynx? Thyroid. Omohyoid. Those depressor muscles that would keep it more anchored are not developing yet. They're still kind of like, they don't know what to do, And so, plus, he's just all discombobulated because his voice doesn't cooperate like he's expecting it to, and things move around a lot. So, any of you guys been out doing observations and you've heard elementary school kids?
Yes.
What happens when they crescendo?
They
They go sharp, yeah. What about the kind of sound you hear in elementary and middle schools? How would you describe it?
I like to scream.
Okay, beyond that, not uniform. How, is it a strong sound?
Yes, in elementary school,
In
it's
elementary,
more strong than
yeah.
in middle school.
Middle school, and that's when people are going
That's when
through
they're-
puberty. Okay, and you hear a lot of air, don't you?
Yes.
You'll hear a lot of air, and exactly, You'll hear a lot of air. It's maybe not a very clear sound, but as an educator, it's more healthy for you to not try to impose some kind of an adult aesthetic on their voices. They're gonna sound breathy.
Yeah.
They're going to have that kind of weak sound, to an adult ear. It's normal for them. So you don't need to go in there with that idea of, no, they must sound like college students, because that's what you've been around. No, they're not gonna sound like high school students. They're gonna sound like middle school kids, and it's gonna be that breathy sound, and the guys might have 5 notes that work, and, and people's voices, they're moving all around, like the person who is comfortable singing soprano is like, I really want to sing alto now. It's not comfortable, and you have to have that flexible attitude of, okay, let's find where you can sing comfortably and expressively and, flex around. Okay, the next concert, hey, my voice is feeling better now, and then you can maybe take them back to that other part. The boys are gonna be slowly shifting down. I remember being in 7th grade, walking in, and I was in, music class, and teacher vocalized us, and my voice had changed, and so I started school early. I was 5 when I started 1st grade, so I was 12 then in 7th grade, and my voice had already changed, and I could sing a low C, so I was obviously a bass, I mean, at least for the stuff we were doing, the SAB stuff we were doing, I was singing bass. Yeah. How many of you have younger cousins, brothers, or sisters, like, that are under 10, under age 10? Okay. Can you imitate their voice, Alora? Imitate how they, like they're excited about something, and how would they talk?
They're excited, and then they, can I have milk, like.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And then so like this, yeah, the singing is similar.
Yeah, and you did exactly what they do, which is they'll take a lot of breaths because they're trying to compete against adult sounds and their older brothers and stuff and all the other kids, and they compromise the length of whatever they're trying to get out. They're using a lot of breath pressure, and they're not able to sustain that for very long because their lungs are not as big as an adult's. And so they compromise the length of whatever it is they're trying to utter and make it as loud as everybody else so they can compete. And so and they're talking like this, and they breathe about every fourth word, and they sing the same way in a choir. They're gonna do the same thing. They're gonna breathe all over the place. And you wanna develop the capacity, but you also have to be understanding that this is just the way things are for them. Just like with you guys, we have to very slowly, patiently say, okay, they can't sing that Puccini aria yet, but I could give them this Mozart piece. Or I could give them, this Haydn piece or something. When they get to grad school, they might sing that other big honking thing. But we have to pace what we give you as well at the college level. Okay, we'll be talking more about older people on Monday. Big things here, puberty, read those things about, let them sing in the mode that's most relaxed. Test them frequently. Be very conservative with the rep. Breathy's normal. They can still get polyps and nodules and things just like adults can. Yeah, we'll continue to talk about this because I know we're kind of running short on time. So for Monday, please read the TUSA report and the GAPL article, and we'll try to wrap up talking about younger singers. I'll bring in some examples of boys and girls at different stages. And we'll talk about older singers. No, that's fine. No, it was just a conversation starter. Well, yeah, it's important to think about it, because you're going to be teaching people going through that.
Yeah, because I wasn't required during my puberty. I didn't have to worry about that, because any singing I pretty much did was in my chest voice at that time.
How long did it take?
Like half the class at least.
Are you for real?
I'm sitting
Just
right there.
to show that she's good, she doesn't look at her phone during class.
Yeah. Carly's.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I would pay attention to it for half the day.
You're probably gonna give me
I know it's weird.
We're not going to meet on Friday because I think you'll all need time to study, and so do I. So have a Friday. Are you going to have withdrawal?
Will you accept observations up until the end of the day?
I was gonna try to get one more in.
I didn't know
You've
if
already
you-
turned in a bunch. You're fine.
But
Your
I
grade is fine.
there's a homework I didn't turn in, though. I never turned in homework.
The homework is like 2 points. You're
Seem like
fine.
dose
You
observations.
killed that last test. You're fine.
That's true.
You know why? Because I helped them study.
That's very true.
She said.
It was an
But
hour
I got a
before-
98.
Oh.
Never helping y'all study again. You're on
It
your
was
own.
really helpful, because I had a lot of things just flipped around. She's like, you know it, but you don't know it. Like, flip this, do that. I was like, oh man, that was a really good hour. Yeah, and then it was all right on the brain, so I came in and smashed
I
it.
showed Dr. Allen the tests we did,
Oh, yeah.
and she'd like me to do the voice profile again
Yes.
before the semester's over.
Oh, okay.
So could we make an appointment? She wants to see if it's changed since I did it in September.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do it next week. Yeah, like ask me Monday or something. We'll
Okay.
find a time.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've had several students who done it, you know, once a semester the whole time they've been here. All right, see ya.